This HomeworkBurst video focuses on the Macbeth homework booklet. Here's all the tasks. Remember to have a good look over them and to plan your way through them accordingly. But today we're going to focus on task 1, annotating posters. What is effective and eye-catching? What images are included? And then there are a series of posters there listed, which are all on the PowerPoint to follow. And an extension for you, which I haven't covered but is worth looking at, is to write a review of one film version. Before we start, I want you to connect to these concepts. I want you to have a little think about what the point of a film poster is. Think back to ones you like. Now, you're most likely to have seen them as Instagram adverts or something on social media as you're scrolling through, and you'll be able to see them, not necessarily in the way that they were when I was a kid, when they were up on the wall outside the cinema, but what's the point of them? What are they for? How are adverts for new Netflix things structured to make you feel? What's the point of them? And if you think that through in a common sense way first, then the academic look at them in a moment will be much simpler. Okay, down the left-hand side now, there are some key ideas from Macbeth: ambition, corruption, violence, gender, and the supernatural. Those are all things you'd expect to see coming up in a film poster for a Macbeth film, because they're central ideas in the play. On the right, there are some classic techniques for film posters. Things you might want to look at. The mise en scène, which is a fancy French way of saying the setting. So that's the proper media studies term for the setting and all the objects and things that you can see on the poster. 2, placement. What's at the centre? What's in the margins? Are there layers to the poster? And if there are, what's in the foreground, right at the front, and what's in the background? What seems most important? What seems left out? What seems up front? And what's sneaky in the background? Then proximity and distance. Who's standing close to each other? Who's standing further apart? Who's standing close to the audience? Who's standing further back? Any obvious symbolism? And any colours and shapes that seem to you to leap out. Now, you won't find all of those in every film poster, but you will find a range of them across a range of film posters, and that's why you need to get used to those concepts. Remember to wind back to this bit in the video if you're looking at more than one poster and you need some prompts. Okay, I'm going to walk you through it now with 2 film posters for Macbeth from the Patrick Stewart and Kate Fleetwood version. We're going to look at the one on the left in a bit more detail. So, in the same way you'd explode a quotation, I'd expect you now to explode a film poster. I've zoomed in on 3 elements. I've zoomed in on the hands and the gore splattering Lady Macbeth. I've zoomed in on the sink, which takes up nearly a third of the poster at the bottom and is therefore clearly important in some way. And I've zoomed in on the top right, Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, and the faces and relationships between the 2 of them. Your job is simple. Pause the video here to have a little think about why those elements have been chosen and what those elements are for. Then unpause me and we'll have a little think about them together in a slightly more developed way. Okay, you've had plenty of time to think about them, so let's have a think now. The hands are the centre of the poster, hands and the gore, and that's about guilt and corruption and the bloodshed of the play being right at the centre. On the top right, Lady Macbeth and Macbeth seem distant from each other. They both seem haunted and troubled by what's gone on, suggesting that big thing in this play is guilt, and you can see that between them. They're both staring into the distance, not even making eye contact with us. There's this sense of guilt through the whole thing. And then the sink at the bottom, which is clearly more important than a sink is usually, I think, is about guilt again. It's about trying to wash things away. It emphasises that element in the play, which is about stuff having gone wrong and the things that we do that we are then guilty for. Let's try and put those into notes then. I have given you some little clues on the poster itself and then 5, 6 elements to look at on the right hand side. And I've suggested ways of exploring them. The central elements of the hands, what are they for? The haunted facial expressions, what do they do and what do they suggest about the atmosphere? C, why is Macbeth in the background? What does that suggest about power and guilt? D, what's the point of the big white sink in the middle? E, the proximity between the characters. Why are they standing so close together? What does that suggest? And F, what's the atmosphere and how would you explore that? So those will work quite nicely as annotations. If you find that you're struggling with some of the language and vocabulary, A little bit further on in this video, I go through some interesting words to enhance your answer. So maybe it's worth pausing here, doing a basic set of annotations, and then rolling the video on to have a look at something in more depth. Let's have a look at how to enhance that then. There are 5 sets of vocab on the screen: savagery, guilt, haunted, lost, and corrupted or ruined, which I think fit really well with the atmosphere of this poster. So a job you could perhaps do if you want to expand and enhance your annotations is to go back and to have a look at, okay, what did I write and where do these words that I've put fit in? Once you're done with that, I'm going to take you through some more film posters. All I'm going to do for this segment is to put them up on the screen. I'm not going to talk about them particularly, but I'm just going to let you roll through so that you can see them all. This time, a little more vocabulary to give you. Savagery, guilt, subdued, meaning kind of pressed down and low key. Otherworldly, things are a bit strange, a bit odd. Okay. Haunted again, lost, and corrupted and ruined. Cerebral is the opposite of physical. So if a poster is very physical, you'd expect to see someone getting belted or an explosion or some people jumping or leaping, something like that. Cerebral suggests it's all happening in the mind. It's about thinking and thoughts. And so you can see that in some of the posters.